Ha, I am so happy to introduce Laura Woods, a new friend of mine that I've just most recently met and started working with. She's an awesome Yurok woman, just an amazing person and culture bearer. And I'm so excited to have you here to tell some stories with us and to continue to work with you because I think you're amazingly fun to be with,
Okay.
and I love to hear you talk. So, without further ado, Laura.
Oh, walk thou. Thank you. Ayukui, Neck now Laura Woods, Oric Ak. I said, hello, my name is Laura Woods. Ayukui, greetings to all of you. Netonk Merrill, my relations, hello. My name is Laura White Woods, and I'm a Yurok tribal member and elder. I'm also working as a community outreach specialist for the Yurok Tribal Court. I work under the direction of Judge Abby Avenatti, the Chief Justice for the Tribal Court. So I'm working in collaboration with the Arcata Playhouse. We have some really exciting projects going on. And that's how Jackie and I found out that I'm about the only one that can out-talk her sometimes. And we do get together and talk for long periods of time. And it's really been a joy. My association and partnership with the Playhouse has just been a wonderful experience. And I'm thrilled to be part of this festival right now, because what a wonderful thing. And I want to thank all the organizers and the Playhouse, everybody, for the bits that I've been able to jump on and watch during these days. Has been just a real inspiration and a real blessing to me. So I thank you all for that, for this. This has been an amazing project here. So let me give you a little backstory. I was born and raised in Las Cruces, New Mexico, because my dad, who's a Yurok tribal member, Ewok Emo Edward White, he was in the military. He was career military, and he was stationed at White Sands Missile Range. So I was born in Las Cruces in the civilian hospital there, and then we traveled all over for the next 20 years. But then when I was growing up, we were always coming back to Oric because my dad was born and raised here in Oric to Yurok parents. I knew it. There's my dog. 1 minute. Let me put her outside.
It wouldn't be Zoom without a barking dog, would it? No, it would not be Zoom without a barking dog. Next, we're going to have the, I should put myself on mute and talk, and then we've covered all the grounds.
I'm so sorry about that. I thought she was already outside, but she's doing her job and protecting me. So that's a good thing. So coming back to Oric, and my grandparents both were Yurok tribal members, and they were excellent storytellers. And I think those qualities just kind of, I don't know if they're genetic or in the DNA or just a love of a good story. So I'm going to be sharing a story today that was written down. Of course, it was an oral tradition. We didn't have a written language in Yurok country. So my great aunties, so they are my grandmother's aunties, put together a little book of Yurok legends. They call it The Legends of the California Indians of the Redwood Empire. And my aunties, my great aunties, wrote down these stories and put them in a book in 1939. And my elders told me that they remember my aunties standing out in front of trees of mystery, selling these little Yurok legend booklets that they made for $1 a piece. And so I thought it might be kind of fun to pick one of the stories from my aunties and share that with you today. So I'm going to share my screen. And let me see, I have it up here so many times. Slideshow. It should say The Legend of Kaluk. Can everybody see that?
Yep, I can.
Oh, great. So The Legend of Kaluk. Kaluk is the Yurok word for the northern goose, or the wild goose of the north. and I'll be telling it. And the story was originally credited, writing it down so that I have the privilege of sharing it with you today from my aunties Awak Faye Aldrich and Awak Ida McBride, circa 1939. So a long, long time ago, I have to preface this story by saying that, no, my screen's not, maybe I shared the wrong screen. Let me try a different one here. There we go. So a long, long time ago in Yurok history, as it's passed down orally, is that there was a time before mankind was on the earth as we know today. And in this pre-mankind time, it had a name, and it was called Likwasha. And that's a spirit time. And all the old timers always talk about the spirit time. And in that time before mankind, all the animals and all the birds and all the fish and even the rocks and even the trees and everything that lived and breathed and grew could communicate with each other. I don't know that they spoke language like we would understand today, but they had a way of communicating, and they lived like people do today, but in their way in the spirit world, Likwasha, the spirit time before mankind. So this is where this story took shape. So this is a story about Kaluk, the gray goose, or the great wild North American goose, and his wife Ner. And Ner is now known as red abalone. And it goes like this. In the beginning, they got together, and their relationship was very good, and they were very happy together. They got married and they started a family. Ner was a very attentive mate and a very good mother to all of their children. And Ner, she always just thought about the comfort of her husband and her family and running the household, and they were very happy for some time. Ner was a very gentle person. Then at some point in the relationship, Kaluk, the goose, became troubled because he went out of his way all the time to go gather the best foods and the best traditional foods for his family, such as acorns and salmon and surffish and eels and all kinds of the very best of the best foods that he gathered and brought home for her to fix for her family. And he noticed that she wouldn't ever eat any of it. And that kind of troubled him because he felt like he went through all that work and effort and time to gather all these special foods for his family. And she brought it home and she prepared it, but he never saw her eat any of it. And so he decided to secretly hide away and watch her. And he did see her take some kelp, which is a seaweed, right? And put it on the coals and roast the kelp up. And once it was roasted up to her liking, just crisp enough, she took it out and she was eating that kelp, and she was just, that's the best kelp. And she just relished every bite of it. And she was just enjoying that kelp with all her heart. Well, he got angry about this because kelp was sort of like a incidental food or not a very fancy or special thing for a person to eat. And he got really angry with her and came out of his hiding place, and they got in an argument about it, and he just wasn't having it that she wouldn't eat those wonderful foods that he provided the family, but instead wanted to just roast and eat some of this lowly kelp food. He put his hands on her and he really beat her severely. And that evening he could hear her crying. And she cried and cried. And even though his heart was filled with sorrow for what he had done, he didn't go to her. And yet she kept crying all night. Well, in the morning time, when he woke up, she was gone. He looked everywhere. He couldn't find her, but he did see her footprints, and they were leaving south. So he got ready and he just started tracking her, and he started following her. He said, I've got to go apologize. I got to bring her home. And so he followed those tracks all the way down to what's now called Patrick's Point. And Patrick's Point is significant in this story because that's where he caught up with her and he found her. And she was still just so sad and so upset. And she was sitting on a rock and she had a basket in her hands and she was crying. And her tears were filling that basket. And in fact, the little basket was so full of her tears from what had happened the night before that it was spilling over the brim of the basket and dropping down onto the rocks below. And he came up to her and he apologized and he said, I want you to come home and I want you to forgive me and I want us to start over and I want us to be happy again. And she'd had all this time to think about it. And as much as it pained her and as much as it hurt her heart to leave her children and the life that they had, she said, I can't go back with you. It's just never going to be the same. And, you know, I can't live that way. So I am not going to come back and live with you. I can't condone what you've done, and I can forgive you, but I can't forget. So I do ask one thing though. I ask that in the fall, you allow our children to fly south and be with me for the winter. And I promise you that in the spring, I will send them back north to be with you. And that's what they did, and they made it work. To this day, if you'll notice, the red abalone shells that you can find on the rocks in Patrick's Point are still there. And in fact, that's about the only location in this area where you can find the beautiful red abalone shells. And furthermore, I remember my grandmother telling me the story and saying all those little delicate holes in the edge of the red abalone shells, for when the first drops hit her first drops hit the rock, it created the baby abalone, and all the tears that followed created all of those little holes that you see around the edge of the abalone. So to this day, Yurok people, in honor of her and her memory and this story, we wear red abalone in our jewelry, in our regalia, and it holds a very special place in Yurok culture and Yurok history, the red abalone. So we honor her for her strength in standing up for herself, her strength and courage and everything that it took for her to leave an abusive and unhealthy situation, and her ability to work with him in the sharing and raising of their children. So this story has meaning to me in that I remember my grandmother telling me this story many times when I was a little girl. And I always just thought it was just, you know, just a sad story. And I always remember it whenever I see red abalone. And I wanted to find a picture of my grandma to share with you because there's an anecdote to this story, this legend of Kaluk, the goose. And what was her name? I already went blank here. And his wife, Yerner, the red abalone. So here's a picture of my granny White. And I want you to just kind of take a moment and see her apron. In all the years I knew my grandmother, there are so many things I never saw her do. I never saw her wear pants or jeans. She always wore a dress. I never saw her ever without an apron on. And she cooked over a wood stove and made the best huckleberry pies and blackberry pies that I ever had in my life. I remember as a child, she'd be in the kitchen, she'd probably be at the sink or the stove, and she'd stop and look up. And all of a sudden, she would run out the door out into the parking area, and she'd have that same apron or one just like that. And she would be waving that apron over her head and looking up to the sky. And she was speaking in Yurok. And sometimes she would cry when she would do that. I never asked her what she was doing or why. But years later, in talking to my cousins, what she was doing, and if I had have noticed, but of course I was a kid, the geese were flying overhead and they were headed south to go see their mother. So my grandmother, knowing this legend, knowing this story, and knowing what had happened to her, to the mother, she would hear those geese in the fall headed south, and she would always run out and wave her apron and talk to those geese in Yurok and cry. And I don't know if they were tears of sorrow for her or tears of joy that her children were going south to see her. But it's just an example of the importance of these legends and stories, and how they were more than just a story. They had such life lessons involved in them, and such like good morals that you could learn, a lesson that you could take away of consequences or things that could happen or might happen if you don't live in a good way. And I've often wondered about my granny's own journey and maybe experience with some kinds of domestic violence. If so, she never spoke about it, but maybe she knew somebody who had also suffered from that. And this just really struck a chord for her whole life. And I don't think that she ever missed an opportunity to wave hello and speak to those geese whenever she heard them crossing overhead and heading south. So knowing that and knowing this story, even now in the fall, when I see the geese, I go out. I don't have a cool apron like she did, but I wave and I talk to them. Ayukui, and I talk to them in Yurok as much as I can and wish them a good journey as they go south to visit their mother. So that brings us to the whole issue. I think this is pertinent too, because latest statistics, which I think are underreported, are saying that most Native women, 3 out of 5, have experienced violence in their lives. And I think a lot of that is domestic violence. And as Judge Abby says, Judge Abby was on this panel just a little while ago, she's always quick to say that that was not our way, that aspect of domestic violence or violence against women was not in our traditions, but that was imported during the invasion. And so, unfortunately, it's prevalent, and we're dealing with it. When I was working as a paralegal in the courthouse, I would have domestic violence restraining orders. It seems like every week I would have one. So bringing this story to light and saying and teaching our people that it's not a customary tradition, it was never part of our culture or our history for violence against women. In fact, women were always lifted up and honored as life givers and child bearers, and they had a special status in the village life, and they were to be honored and cared for and protected and never harmed. So the goal is how do we get back to that? How do we make our men understand that this is not culturally appropriate? It was never part of who they are, and not part of our history. So bringing these stories to light and the awareness, I'm hoping, and bringing them to the youth and the young people to bring that awareness and to be talking about that is important to this day. So I just wanted to share that story with this group, and the story about what it meant to my grandmother and what it means to me. So I think I have time for any questions or comments or anything. I'd be happy to engage.
Sure. Do we have any questions? I know this is our little family focused time. I see one hand. Allie Freeland would love to ask a question. Go ahead, Allie.
Hi, Laura. I am a storyteller, and I tell a lot of wildlife stories. Thank you so much for this beautiful story, and for really keeping the thread of the way we need to move through this world in a better way, ever present in our storytelling. I feel like I learn from the stories ones that I even create, and I feel blessed by stories, and I can tell that you feel blessed by your stories. I was really, I would love to send you a link. I just got word today, or was it, I guess it was yesterday, that there's this huge effort to bring Native studies to all elementary, middle school, and high school Native tribes in California. And I thought, wow, what a long time coming. And I feel like this is such a way of a day of celebration. And at the same day I got that in my inbox, I got the Tolowa story about how they're trying up there in the Lake Earl area to buy back their land. And I just want to say I want to support somehow all these things, and so grateful that you have come into this Zoom world and to share this story. So
Thank you.
that's all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I think Jackie can get in touch with me if I can get my chat going. I'll put my email in the chat box, and just feel free to reach out to me, and any opportunity. I was an education major at New Mexico State University, and so I have that teacher blood in me. And I am going to really start working with our local schools and having storytelling time. And I'll be happy to participate, and feel free, if ever you see a project or something that you might be able to use me, let me know, and I'll see if I can fit it into my schedule. I'm really looking forward to post-COVID life, so I can get back out and about and be around people, and bring my baskets and bring some of our regalia, and tell some of our Yurok stories, and to bring that awareness and education, and the insight that these stories have, this ancient wisdom. It's important to share that. So thank you. I would love to be a part of that.
Tribe.nsn.us.
Yeah. So that is my email address. It's my first initial last name. It's LWOODS @YurokTribe.nsn, as in Native Sovereign Nation.us. That's the best way to get in contact with me. Thank you.
Laura, thank you so much for sharing stories and speaking with us today. It's been so spectacular having you here. Would you like to say anything else to our wonderful people in our Zoomosphere?
Oh, I think this is wonderful. Thank you for inviting me. And then tomorrow at what time, Jackie? Am I showing a documentary?
I believe you are there for the lunchbox at noon.
At noon.
I'm going to go ahead and bring us back to you. There, we see you now. Tomorrow at noon for the lunchbox.
Yes, and so at noon tomorrow, please join me. I'm going to be showing We Are Off, which is a really good a mini, like 38-minute documentary, a little bit about the history, culture, and times of the Yurok tribe. And we also it gives a really nice overview of our ceremonies and the resurgence of the flower dance, brush dance, jump dance, white deerskin dance. And it's amazing. It's a really good, informative video, and I would like to, and it's family friendly, kids, everybody, family. So if you know anybody that would be interested in watching this really well done documentary about the Yurok tribe, please bring them and join us tomorrow.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting to have you come multiple times this week. Thank you. Thank you.
They get sick of me, but anyway, I'm here. I'm enjoying this festival so much. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I think Jackie's helping with something else out of
Thank you, Laura.
Oh, there is Jackie.
Yeah, we just had our Walls on Wheel exhibit fall over, so I had to go get it and put it, help do that. Big crash. But thank you so much for joining us. I so appreciate you, and appreciate you coming in. Shoshana, you're going to go in 2 minutes, right?
Yes, I am. Leaf art.
It's amazing. Okay, so I just have to say, Shoshana got her first COVID shot on Wednesday, which is great. But Shoshana went to her first COVID shot in a ball gown and a fascinator hat.